Oh my god, has Studio Ghibli finally fumbled? Has Studio Ghibli finally produced a flop? Has Studio Ghibli finally made an oopsie and made a shitty film? Right, I cannot say that as an overall whole. I've only seen 3, 4 Studio Ghibli movies: Princess Mononoke, Howl's Moving Castle, and I watched another one which I can't remember the name of. I've reviewed them all on the channel, but I am going to be reviewing the newest addition to the Studio Ghibli movie library, which is The Boy and the Heron, because it recently came onto Netflix. Because they all have. They have all the Studio Ghibli movies for whatever reason. I don't know why Netflix has all the Studio Ghibli movies, but it does. So, if you're ever in the mood for a little bit of Ghibli, a little bit of a light-hearted fun, a little bit of a anime mystery and anime fantasy, head over to Netflix. Not sponsored, by the way. But without any further delay, let's take a look at what Google has to say. So, The Boy and the Heron is a 2023 movie. It is a fantasy adventure, which is 2 hours and 4 minutes. It has a 7.4 out of 10 on IMDb, a 4.3 out of 5 on Amazon, and 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. Mahito, a young 12-year-old boy, struggles to sell into town after his mother's death. However, when a talking heron informs Mahito that his mother is still alive, he enters an abandoned tower in search of her, which takes him to another world. So how this movie really goes is with Mahito's mother being in hospital. The hospital burns down because there's a war going on. So Mahito's father moves him to the countryside to live with a bunch of old ladies and his auntie. And his auntie's preggers and is having a baby, and Mahito doesn't like that. Mahito goes to school and he hits himself on the head with a rock because he doesn't want to go back to school because they're all starting on him and all fighting him. So he's staying at home. The heron is talking to him. He doesn't like the heron. He's trying to hide from the heron, but he ends up going to find the heron, or trying to kill the heron with a bow and arrow for no apparent reason. He just wants to kill the heron. I don't know what it did to piss him off, but he wants to kill said heron, and he ends up going to find his auntie who's pregnant and enter the forest on her own. He's followed by the old lady which likes cigarettes, and he meets Luke Skywalker, the old wizard, and the heron is forced to take him to the other side to find his mum. So they go to the other side to find this ancient world, and he opens the gates which lets the herons free, and then Florence Pugh is like, hell nah, which is the younger version of the old lady, which is Kiriko, and she goes to save him, close the gates, and they go to an abandoned boat where the water start sort of hatching and turning into humans in the real world because they're like sperm or egg or something. I don't know why, but I assumed they were called Rada Rada. You know, like in Chowder, that one guy, Schnitzel, I think he's called, where he goes Rada Rada Rada. For whatever reason, I thought they were called Rada Rada, but they're not. They're called Wada Wada. And Kiriko's master, the lady fire woman, she saved the day, and she burnt all the herons, and William Dafoe was one of the herons, which is like, we were trapped in this world, we don't want to be here, there's not enough fish for us to be here. So they continue to go on a journey, and they meet budgies, and the budgies are evil and want to eat humans, and then the fire spirit is like, hell nah, brother, saves Mahito, and then they end up in a wizard room, and the wizard's like, yo, I'm your great uncle, I want you to take over, and Mahito is like, maybe I need to go save my friends first. He wakes up, and the heron is saving him from being eaten by a bird, and they then try and go save Kiriko, who is given to the wizard, and the King Budgie, Dave Bautista, is pissed off that the wizard is leaving their world in the hands of a child, so he tries to make the stack, and it doesn't stack, so he gets pissed off and cuts it in half, which ends up pissing off a giant rock, which ends up destroying their world. So they run back through the fucking tower and go back to the real world, and then Mahito's just happy, and then that's the movie ends. I'm gonna be honest, this movie makes little to no fucking sense, There's no setup, there's no sort of plot devices, it's just kind of a list of things that is happening. There is no good flow to this story. It feels very rapid, very quick, very switch-uppy. It goes from one thing to another. Mahito says he senses, like, fucking malice in the building blocks, and then he goes from talking to the wizard to fucking ending up chained up in the Budgie's kitchen. It is just so random, so choppy, and I do like it when Studio Ghibli makes these new worlds with these new creatures, but the difference between, like, Howl's Moving Castle and Princess Mononoke, those worlds are set up at the beginning. Those worlds are set up and expanded upon. And it's spoken about, and that sticks to the rules. They stick to the rules of the world that they're setting up. This is just fucking random and bizarre, because the Heron can turn into a human, and vice versa, but needs his special feathers to be able to do so. But the feather got ripped, but he can still sort of change into the Heron. The magic world disappears and he can still flip-flop between them. The old lady is herself and also a totem pole, and he's talking to his mother who can control fire but then dies in a fire. It's just... it doesn't make sense. In my head, watching this movie, there is no solid flow. It is just so random, so bizarre. There's nothing really set up, and there's nothing really explained. When he hits himself on the rock, my inference, my sort of inferring from why he did that was because he didn't want to go to school because he's being picked on. That was my sort of take on that story. But then he said he gave himself the scar to resemble his malice. And it's like, what the fuck? Why is a 12-year-old boy doing that? Why is a 12-year-old boy being this philosophical? That's just not how shit happens. And he's telling his mum not to go back because she'll die in a fire. But she does anyway. But it's not explained why she can't not go back. Because the timeline will get scuffed or whatever. I don't fucking get it. The old lady turns into a totem. Again, I don't understand that. Like, how the fuck did she turn into a totem? Also, the Budgie being a bitch. Like, the Budgie being an absolute bitch and cutting the world in half. He was so arrogant and so quick to rush into something that he caused the own downfall of his world. It didn't feel very... because they didn't set up King Budgie to be, like, arrogant. He was only on screen for like 5 minutes. They didn't set him up as a villain that would do something like that. They didn't set him up to be the world ender. Like, they set him up within 5 minutes, so it didn't feel like a very good payoff. They introduced him to us to kill him off right off the bat. It was like some kind of Alice in Wonderland type shit, because when they all went back to the real world, they all transformed back into like generic old budgies or cranes or herons or actual normal shit. It definitely gave Alice in Wonderland vibes, but even Alice in Wonderland being random had points to it, had a story, had a continuous flow. It made sense. There was rules to the characters and rules to the world of what it was. It was cool, magical, and colourful. There was no rules to this. It was cool, magical, and colourful. Yes, it had that down. The animation style is Ghibli's trademark. It works. But the story wasn't nice. The story didn't feel whole. It felt rushed and felt unfinished. Even though they had like an all-star cast, I feel like this movie could have been better. Like, obviously they had the all-star cast, so acting and voice acting was impeccable. They had William Dafoe, Florence Pugh, Dave Bautista, and so many other characters, like Mark Hamill, and even fucking, like, David Patterson. Oh, what's it called? Robert Patterson, there we go. And Robert Patterson has some fucking range, man. Hearing his voice in this, I struggled to tell it was him. Dave Bautista was kind of a letdown, not gonna lie. He kind of just used his own voice, and it kind of felt quite basic. But Florence Pugh gave it her all, doing the old lady voice and the younger voice. Like, she's good. Like, it just kind of felt very off hearing, like, all these very famous, familiar voice acting and I don't know, it kind of felt really big budget compared to other anime movies, and I just didn't like it. I didn't resonate with it. I didn't understand it, and that's probably why I don't like it as much as some of the Studio Ghibli movies, is because I don't fucking get it. If someone would be so as kind to explain this in the comments so I can understand this a bit better and have a little bit more appreciation for it, I would be greatly, humbled. I will be humble, and I will accept it, that I'm stupid and that I'm uncultured. But I don't fucking get it. I don't understand this movie. It makes no sense to me. It's good in every single other aspect other than story. The story is janky as shit. It just doesn't fit together nicely. It doesn't fit. It's like building a Lego set or building a puzzle and having like 8 spare pieces left over. There is story here, but it's not finished. It's not complete. There's some weak areas that could be worked on. Like, give us more of King Bungie. Set him up to be a better villain. Set him up more. Give us more explanation on this grand uncle. They gave us it in a monologue. That's boring. Show us the past. Show us him going down this crazy descent. Don't just tell us. Give us some description. Give us some, give us something to watch instead of listen to. There is potential in this movie, but it isn't reached. It isn't made. It isn't done. It feels incomplete, whatever. It upsets me. It upsets me because Studio Ghibli is known for its bangers, but I cannot give this one any higher than a 3 out of 10 because I'm not going to watch it again. I don't recommend that you watch this one. I feel like everyone's judgment is clouded by Ghibli's name and the actors.